There's some history up against the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and we'll show you exactly why. And if you're up for another history lesson, the same can be said for the Kentucky Derby winner in the Breeders' Cup Classic. And we'll hand you the keys to the cup for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint as the pursuit is back on.
Skywalker is still there, carrying a huge upset looming here, and they're coming down to the finish, and it is pleasantly perfect. Raven Pass and Frankie Dettori have won the classic. Zenyatta, what a performance, one we'll never forget.
Brought to you by FUSAICHI, home of North America's first thoroughbred auction company. FUSAICHI, get in the game. And TwinSpires.com, the best online wagering experience in racing. Visit TwinSpires.com to sign up today. He schooled yesterday here at Santa Anita Park and out on the track early this morning. That is Shared Belief, the favorite for this year's $5 million Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Classic. Well, a much different feeling here at Santa Anita Park as we are just less than 24 hours away from day one of BC31. You can feel the anticipation. Fans are continuing to grow as far as coming out here in the mornings as I turn to my co-host Richard Migliori, and how different it is for those of us that are looking forward to this race. I mean, everybody's looking forward to these races, but how different it is for the fans versus those horsemen and jockeys that are set to compete on this big stage.
Yeah, we get to relax and enjoy the spectacle, so to speak. And you could see every day the groundswell of people that have showed up here at Santa Anita. Clocker's Corner is just packed this morning. And that's a great time for us. But for the trainers, they're basically holding their breath at this point. They want to keep their horses in good order. And there's no time to correct anything. If they do have an issue at this point, you can't fix it. And that's why we've seen some defections. Better they are out than run at less than 100%.
And we've seen some pretty nice horses behind us here circling in this paddock, one of which caught your eye, Artemis Agritera. She looked like a supermodel out here in the paddock as she came back from her morning exercise, getting ready for the Filly Mare Sprint brought to you by DraftKings. Well, let's turn now our attention to that $5 million featured race of the Breeders' Cup each and every year. That is the Breeders' Cup Classic. And as we mentioned, Shared Belief, the 9-5 favorite, schooled yesterday. Dan Ward, the assistant trainer to Jerry Hollendorfer, told Zoe Cadman yesterday of all the times that he has showed up here at Santa Anita, Richie, this is by far the best that he has looked in showing up down here in Southern California. Well,
I tell you, I like a lot more what I'm seeing in person than I did watching his works. I thought that maybe that hard race last time might have spent him a little bit, but boy, he looks like he's here. He knows why he's here, and he's basically a little bit almost pent up now. He seems like he's ready to get it on, and I thought his energy level looked much better today than from what I could ascertain off of videotape.
It's great news. For those of you getting ready to back the undefeated gelding Shared Belief, Zebo, here's a look at him on the track here at Santa Anita Park. He's continued to make a nice impression.
Nah, I love this horse, and not just because he's a New York bred.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure. It just looks good. He shows up every time. I mean, you go through his race record, and there's not a time you can't say he didn't put in an effort, and that's one thing I like about horses, the honest ones. They bring their lunch pail, and they go to work. Well, I expect him to bring his lunch pail and go to work on Saturday.
Owned by Tom Coleman, trained by Chad Brown. He's only raced 17 times as a 5-year-old, but he's won 9 of those 17 starts. And here's a look at the Derby and Preakness champ, California Chrome.
And he looks like the horse that he was before the Derby. He's got that energy level back. His weight's good. His coat's good. You can see him pulling Willie Delgado out of the tack, keeping his head cocked slightly to the right, because sometimes you turn their head completely straight and they think it's time to get it on. Well, he's just letting them know, look, buddy, just get off the bridle a little bit. This horse looks really good, and I think you're going to see California Chrome's A-game.
We so much celebrate the Kentucky Derby winners, but the bottom line, Richie, is that over the years, we really haven't seen a lot of success from Kentucky Derby winners that ran in the Classic in the same year. In fact, the last two came back in 89 and 90 as far as winning the Derby and the Breeders' Cup Classic in the same year. And it's been a while since we've seen a Derby winner run in the Classic period. 2009, the last time that we saw a Derby winner, that was Mind That Bird, and that was a subpar performance.
Well, I think it speaks to just what a tough grind the Triple Crown is, and it's a long year. It's hard to have a horse good early in the spring and then have him good again as we get into fall. So I think it's more a function of that, and you look at the trainers that were able to accomplish that, Charlie Whittingham and Carl Nafsker, two of the old school guys who probably knew how to point just for those races.
And Sunday Silence, Derby and Preakness winner and Classic win their same year. So we'll see if California Chrome can follow in the footsteps of Sunday Silence. Moving on to the Grade 1 Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, Untappable and Closed Hatches. As you certainly know, they are the big ones drawn to the outside, and we will take a look at Closed Hatches on the race course for Bill Mott. What are your thoughts of her race, which really wasn't that far away from this distaff try at Keeneland?
Well, here, and you can see her galloping the wrong way with draw reins. And you know, she's a tough filly. She's a filly that, you know, always wants to do more. I think you throw the race out. I think she's obviously a lot better than that. She had an uncharacteristically fast work, not too far out from that. I think it might have spent her a little bit. I think she's coming into this race the proper way, and I very much think she's a horse to beat.
Looks great out on the race course. There's no question about that. And Mr. Mott, he knows how to win these big ones on the Breeders' Cup card. As far as Aya Tapa, here she is out on the track, a filly that is looking to bounce back and hopefully break a lot better than she did in the Grade 1 Zenyatta.
Well, and that's probably the key to her success. She needs to get out of the gate in good order. She does her best work up on the front end, and she needs to leave on time to have a chance with these horses. This is a very deep competitive field. And Joe Talamo, I'll go back to it, says she rocks in the gate. So if she's rocking forward at the right moment, she could catch a flyer.
These two quick fillies are drawn right next to each other in the gate, Aya Tapa and Bel Galante. Who's quicker early on, Richie?
It's not even close. Aya Tapa is much quicker. Bel Galante is able to make the lead when they go 24, 47. Aya Tapa is capable of going a lot faster. She's a big, long striding mare, though. I think she really relished the one turn at Belmont last time. She's a good mare, but she's going to have a little forward movement in her throttle to compete with these, I believe.
Former claimer, now a two-time Grade 1 winner for Mr. Dub in part in Bethlehem Stable, and Rudy Rodriguez and Untappable. She's been here a while. She showed up the day after she won the Cotillion at Parks, and she has looked great in her training for Steve Asmussen and Winchell Thoroughbreds.
Yeah, she couldn't look any better, and I like the fact that she's been here. She's been training for a while here. I think she looks the picture. She's taken on Elders. She's going to have to run her A race for sure, but I think the race is her in Closed Hatches.
Same situation with the Oaks winner the same year in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. We've only had one Oaks and Distaff winner in the same year. That was a Shadow back in 2004, 10 years ago. Princess of Silmar showed up, but didn't show up out on the race course here in Southern California. Last year, she finished 6th in a field of 6, and we've seen some great fillies being beat. As favorites, go back to Silver Bullet Day, a Hall of Famer in '99. She finished a dull 6th-place finish, and go back to some other big horses like Goodbye Halo. She was 3rd in one of the best distaffs ever, and the Kentucky Derby winner that same year, Winning Color, she finished 2nd. So as far as 3-year-old fillies in the distaff that have competed in the Kentucky Oaks, a little history against them as well, Richie.
Yeah, again, it goes back to it's just hard to have them have that good form the entire year. And especially for fillies. I mean, sometimes they get towards the fall of the year and they start closing down, where other fillies come on. So the ones that were good in the spring are not necessarily as good in the fall.
So we'll see if Untappable can do what Ashado did 10 years ago at Lone Star Park in 2004. All right, time now for our Pursuit News Update, brought to you by OCD Pellets. For more information, go to OCDpellets.com as we turn to Caton Bradar. And Caton, I think this morning maybe files under the old adage, no news, good news as far as BC 31?
For sure, especially after yesterday with the numerous defections today. So far fairly quiet, and all the Breeders' Cup horses having to be on the grounds yesterday. Among the last to arrive were a trio for Wesley Ward, including Judy the Beauty. But their trainer isn't with them, and he won't be coming, despite the fact that he sends out 4 post-time favorites in search of his first Breeders' Cup victory. Wesley Ward will remain in Florida, as he has the last few years, to watch his son compete in a track meet. He said this is his priority, to be there with his son. He will watch the Breeders' Cup on an iPad, and said he'll be that crazy guy running around everybody's looking at in the Fort Lauderdale area, should he be successful in getting his first victory. Now, it's a bit of a late night for Jerry Hollendorfer, but he was on hand this morning to see Shared Belief hit the track, his first time out at Santa Anita since shipping in from their base at Golden Gate. Meanwhile, Jerry up late to watch the Giants clinch the World Series in Game 7. Maybe an omen for Shared Belief.
I dozed off a little bit, but I woke up and there was Bumgardner was trying to get the last out, so I was happy to see that.
You feel like it's a good omen for another Golden Gate type horse?
Well, it doesn't hurt, that's for sure. He's going to gallop, and we'll stand him up in the gate, and then he'll gallop around and pull up at the 3/4 pole and then come back to the paddock. The only thing I know about Shared Belief is that he's done everything that we've asked him to do and more. And so we have a lot of confidence in our horse, and we're going to walk over with confidence, but respecting everybody else that's in the race. It's loaded with really good horses, so, you know, it's going to end up being a rider's race, and probably some luck involved also. So we'll hope we get the good ride and the good luck.
Now, kind of a new day for Todd Pletcher, who 6 months ago had the top older horses in the country. This year, he runs only 2-year-olds in the Cup.
You know, all these horses have trained very well all along. They're all horses that we've liked for you know, since when they first came in. Just trying to manage their personalities a little bit, work on the ones that, you know, need a little more gait work, and really we're fortunate. It's a really good group of horses. They're all well-minded horses, and you know, very straightforward for 2-year-olds. You know, it's disappointing when you don't get some horses like Palace Malice here. The good news for us is it looks like we're going to get a lot of these horses back for next year. So, you know, we're a little light in our older horse division at the moment, but we could be as strong as we've ever been next year if everybody comes back and, you know, stays healthy. So we're looking forward to that, and it's exciting when you have some good young horses. But, you know, as we know, as we've seen this week, you know, you can get really, really close to being here on the big day and not quite make it. And in our case, we had some defections kind of in August and September that hopefully we'll get back for next year. Race over the track, and you know, she's been here since then. I'm not sure that it's an advantage. The last couple of years we've had some success shipping in here for the preps, and then horses didn't run back quite as well in the Breeders' Cup. Of course, Breeders' Cup's a lot tougher race than the preps, so. I don't think it's a disadvantage anyways. She's settled in well here. She's been training well. She seems happy and had a good race over the track. Position in the first turn is key in these larger fields with young horses that haven't had a lot of dirt in their face. So, you know, it takes a major contender out of the race, and it also takes a little bit of speed out of the race. Both of our horses should be forwardly placed. We're ideally going to be in some sort of stalking position and not lose too much ground on the first turn. I mean, it's a simple formula, but sometimes hard to get there when there's a large field.
All 2-year-olds, of course, among them Angela Renee in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies for Todd Pletcher, and a pair in the Juvenile Colts and Daredevil and Carpe Diem. We have a lot more baby talk coming up. A little housekeeping note, too. Some horses, including some Euros, will be schooling downhill over the course at 9:45 this morning. We talked to Chad Brown to see if Bobby's Kitten would do the same. He said Bobby's Kitten is at a bit of a disadvantage not having experience over the course, but that said, the horse is doing so well, he was a little afraid that he might just take off down the hill and run his race today. So no training downhill for Bobby's Kitten, but again, something else to look forward to with those others, and much more coming up on Pursuit of the Cup, including a closer look at some of the babies. We'll go to kindergarten there, and we'll take a look at not only the 2-year-old divisions, but one family with a real vested interest and a true family affair. That coming up on the other side of the break.
Like her mother in a lot of ways, except that she's a little bit rangier, a little bit scopier, and you'd think the distances are going to be good for her.
A daughter of Indian Charlie, that doesn't hurt. This will be the first time that she goes 2 turns. Drawn to the inside is Feathered for Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners and trainer Todd Pletcher.
Well, and I think that's a big advantage. You want inside draws in these 2-turn races, especially with young horses, and she should get a good trip under Javier Castellano. She possesses speed, and he's going to have to use some of that speed, and I think she could maybe even make the front with her stablemate, Angela Renee, following her around there.
She, too, a daughter of Indian Charlie. So the Indian Charlies bookend the field this year in the 14 Hands Winery Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Moving over to the Sentient Jet Breeders' Cup Juvenile for the boys, Daredevil, the morning line favorite at 5-2. But Johnny Velasquez opting for Carpe Diem, Richie, in this race.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it shook out, but he rode Carpe Diem last time at Keeneland, and then Javier Castellano jumped on Daredevil. It kind of looks like Johnny preferred this one. Obviously, he's got 2-turn success. That's a big advantage for him. I like horses that have 2-turn races under their belt when they're this young, and he looks good on the track. I can't fault him at all.
A $1.6 million purchase for Stone Street Stables and Windstar Farm. Immediately found himself in the winner's circle at Saratoga. Followed that up with a Grade 1 win in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. As for his stablemate, Daredevil, owned by Let's Go Stable, half purchased by WinStar Farm recently, a colt by More Than Ready. I mean, there's no doubt that he is the colt to beat now with the defection of American Pharoah.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I couldn't fault Carpe Diem, but I can't rave enough about what I see from Daredevil on the track. I just love the way he conducted himself this morning and just is focused and relaxed. And he acts like he owns the joint. You want to see that attitude from a young horse.
I like that. Blue Dancer, post position number 3 for Greg Tracy. He comes in from Hastings, a colt by Bluegrass Cat who's unbeaten, 4 for 4.
You know, you got to like that. The water's going to get a lot deeper. I'm not crazy about the way he's striding out in his gallop. He looks like he's just a little bit shorter than you'd like to see. He's off the bridle, and he's even got horses around him, and he's still not picking the bridle up. I think he's going to have to show that he can class up with some of these.
Calculator draws post 1 for Richard Pell and Peter Miller, a colt by In Summation. Paid a lot of money for this youngster, $132,000 at the OBS back in April.
Well, his last race was terrific, and you know we all loved American Pharoah, unfortunately, till his defection. So if you liked him, you got to give this horse a look because he was only beaten 3.5 lengths to him.
He's a maiden, 0 for 4, but as you mentioned, only beaten by American Pharoah in that Grade 1 front runner, which was a second place finish. Elvis Trujillo will take the call. Just to his outside post position number 2, Jesse Campbell for Mr. Mellon's Mellon Patch Incorporated, and Michael Campbell turned out to be a pretty good claim for $50,000.
Gosh, somebody was paying attention in the mornings to how this horse was training to reach in a $50,000 first time out without any form to go on. So obviously somebody doing their homework, and this horse is a real nice, consistent horse who's going to need to pick up his game a little bit, but they're young horses, and he very possibly could do that.
Tell you what, he picked up his game in the Prairie Meadows Juvenile back in August, Caton, where he beat Lucky Player, a horse that's going to get a lot more ink going into this juvenile. But as far as the connections, there's a little special place in our heart for the Campbell family and the Mellon family because, you know, they're from Chi-Town.
And a connection to you and me as well, Scott, that is for sure. Now, he may be a long shot, but he's done a little wrong, and Private Prospect debuted for that $50,000 claimer for Keith DeSormo. Mike Campbell claimed him in the hopes that the horse could take his family to the same heights the DeSormo family has known. It's truly a family affair.
My grandfather migrated from Eastern Kentucky to Wisconsin and then began racing horses in Southern Illinois.
As a family, it's pretty much meant the world. Being fourth generation, you know, I keep going back to the thought of my grandparents.
It's kind of a natural transition. They grew up on the backside also. They were both very accomplished as riders. I'm proud of both of them.
We've been working together with my father since we were both 15, 16, coming down here galloping horses. I was going to college. Jesse was riding already.
I think it's a dream come true. That probably summarizes it best.
To enjoy this with my family and my parents in particular is pretty special.
To have horse in the Breeders' Cup is obviously a goal of all trainers, and I suspect all owners.
Of course, we hope the horse runs great and all that, but to me, it's just a bonus.
The idea behind this with the Mellons and with the Campbells is that we were going to incorporate our families into it, to bring them into it, to make it an experience of a lifetime and a memory that they'll never forget. We were looking for a 2-year-old to buy at a sale, and we didn't get him. And then I had kind of been watching the trainer, and I kind of anticipated the move that he would put a horse in where it could win, and $50,000 was the claiming price. And so that was really the premise for the whole idea of picking this horse up, and we got very fortunate. If that would happen, and again, we got a lot of work to do, but our family's very committed. We have been for a long, long time.
I'll cry for sure. It'd be really emotional.
If the racing gods bring that, if we're fortunate enough to have that happen to us, we'll do it. We'll feel very privileged.
Well, Jesse Campbell and his brother Joel went to high school with my niece, and having seen the boys grow up, it's already a dream come true just to be in this position, even with a chance. Dreams and being in this position, what it's all about. When we return on Pursuit of the Cup, we'll take a closer look at the fastest show on earth. It's the Sprint Division coming up.
Brought to you by FUSAICHI, an all-time great place to buy all-time great racehorses. No one has a longer pedigree. And TwinSpires.com. Wager on the go with TwinSpires mobile smartphone app. TwinSpires.com, where players win. As Kate mentioned, the fastest show on earth, the ExpressBet Breeders' Cup Sprint. Secret Circle, the defending champion, the 9-2 morning line favorite. But Richie, the Hong Kong Invader, beat him last time out. That is Rich Tapestry, and ran very fast in 7 and change, going 3/4 of a mile.
You got to like this horse. He's a world traveler. He came here first time in the States, first time on dirt, took the kickback, split horses, got it done, and his trainer said he could be 15 to 20% better this time. Now, I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but he doesn't have to be to win this.
Just blew out 10 minutes ago. I know you love that move. So Rich Tapestry out on the track this morning, blowing out Bakken. That's where Gary Stevens will sit in the ExpressBet Breeders' Cup Sprint for trainer Chad Brown.
Bakken, immensely talented. He's going to have to show me he can handle some of these battle-tested warriors here in the sprint. But you know he's very talented, and it wouldn't be a surprise. I've still got to see it.
His 3 wins have come in Allowance Company, 5th in the Grade 1 Malibu, 2nd behind Palace in the Grade 2 True North back in June. Fast Anna, he's quick, I should say. The boy named Anna. Don't mess with him out on the race course.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is the horse that I'm looking at long and hard. His work was fast, probably faster than I normally like going into a race, but this was a case of it's not how fast you're going, it's how you're going fast. Gosh, he couldn't have done it any easier.
Here's Windfire blowing out today for Dave Brown and Qatar Racing. This is a filly by Distorted Humor. The American pedigree is there to run well on the dirt, even though she has never raced on a dirt surface. All of her races over in Europe have come on grass.
Yeah, she's getting over the ground well. She's kind of looking around. You'd like to see her just get a little more serious, kind of let her know that, you know, there's a battle coming, but she does have a great pedigree for the dirt. And you've got Dream Supreme, who was a tremendous sprinter in her pedigree, a filly that I believe won the test, if not the test of Ballerina, really good filly. So who knows, maybe she'll take after that side of the family. Certainly her connection sees something that says dirt. I'm not going to question them.
Part of Jamie Spencer's swan song here at Breeders' Cup. Jamie will ride for Qatar Racing. Windfire 30-1 on the morning line in the ExpressBet Breeders' Cup Sprint. The DraftKings Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, 7 furlongs the distance. Judy the Beauty, she is the morning line favorite at 5-2, but you know what we're talking about here. Artemis Agraterra, she stole the show as far as looks today at Santa Anita.
Well, I think you said it 100% correct. She looked like a supermodel, and she did. That was a great explanation of how she appeared in the paddock here. You can see she's all business, got her head down. She's got draw reins on. You can see her yoke kind of pulled off to the side there with the fuzzy on it, and just as coiled up and ready to run as a horse could be. And Michael Hushin, a trainer who deserves a Breeders' Cup winner because nobody does it better.
That's her yesterday on the track. She looked just as good, trust me, out today. There's a look at Better Lucky for Godolphin. It's an interesting mare for Tom Albatrani. She was on turf, then they sprinted her, then they moved her back to grass. What do you make of this filly showing up in this race this year?
Well, I think that this is really what she wants to do. I mean, she's good on turf. I think she's actually better one-run sprinting. And I think if there's a pace meltdown, that's the filly that could benefit the most.
Lee Court, she earned her way into the Breeders' Cup by way of the TCA winning you're in the Breeders' Cup program. This is her yesterday. She's trained by Josie Carroll. She's 7 for 11 lifetime.
Yeah, and I like the fact that she showed a different dimension last time coming from off the pace. She looked good on the track. She did have an arduous van ride here, which, you know, I question, and you hope that it doesn't have any ill effects, I should say.
And Stone-tastic, the gray filly for Kelly Breen. This is her yesterday on the track for Stoneway Farm. She's awful quick, we know that.
I think this is your pacemaker. Her work was tremendous here the other day, and she looks good. I think it could be a tale of the 3-year-old fillies in this filly and mare sprint, and I think they're going to have to run Stone-tastic down.
She was beaten by Lee Court in the TCA. That was at Keeneland, the follow-up to her flashy win in the Grade 2 Prioress, where she beat older fillies at Saratoga. But we're going to turn our attentions now to Clocker's Corner, to Christina Blacker, to talk more about the turf sprint. And I'm glad you're talking about it, because this is the most impossible race to me of this year's Breeders' Cup.
Scott, for a race down such a unique course, it was one of the most popular pre-entries. 14 can run, 29 pre-entered. They could have run it twice down the hill here at Santa Anita. Millie Ball joins me now to discuss the turf sprint. And Millie, when it comes to this race, it really is just about the veterans with experience down the hill and the rookies taking them on.
Yeah, you just have to think back to Miss Direction and how good she was down the hill, winning back-to-back Breeders' Cups. But 5 horses among the field have had experience coming down the hill. Funny thing is, Renee's got zip. The only 2 times she's ever run down the hill before is in the Breeders' Cup. This will be her 3rd time this year.
She has hit the board in both of those 2 prior Breeders' Cup efforts. We'll talk more about Renee's Got Zip in a moment. Let's take a look at those horses that are pre-entered for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. It will go as race number 7 on Saturday with a post time of 2:05 Pacific. Here's a look. The morning line choice is one of the rookies in No Nay Never at 9-2 for Wesley Ward. He will actually school over the crossover a little bit later on this morning. We'll get that video for you later on today on HRTV, maybe on the show tomorrow. Time now, though, for our Keys to the Cup, brought to you by Pin Oak Stud. You can go to Pin Oak Stud for more information. And Millie, we focus in on another rookie in Bobby's Kitten,
who we saw running in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last year, and he ran off that day, according to Chad Brown, and he ended up finishing 3rd, the best of the American finishes in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, behind the 2 Euros. But he's named after the Hall of Fame trainer Bobby Frankel, the late Bobby Frankel, and Chad said he has a complex mind like the boss had too, who he's named after. He said he's happy that Joel got the experience with him at Woodbine in the Woodbine Mile. He ran 3rd that day. He got to know him because he's a very tricky ride. When he breaks out of the gate, Christina, he goes from being this completely laid-back, relaxed horse to incredibly aggressive.
Could be a concern down the hill, and as you heard from Caton, he will not school over the crossover. How about Ambitious Brew? This is out on the track this morning for Marty Jones. Significant, I think, that Mike Smith stays with this horse when he rode No Nay Never in the Woodford last time.
And I spoke to Brad Pegram, who's the agent of Mike Smith, and he said they were already committed here to Ambitious Brew. And Mike's done really well with this horse in the past. Ran 2nd, just beaten a nose by Home Run Kitten last time out in the Eddie D. Looking for his first graded stakes win.
Renee's Got Zip, pretty impressive in her final drill for Pete Miller, and she draws the inside post. You spoke to Pete this morning about that.
I did. You know, 2 horses got an A+ grade for workouts from me. This was one of them. The other one, unfortunately, American Pharaoh, who will not run, but Renee's Got Zip. I loved this work. I just loved how happy she looks. She's absolutely flicking her feet out. She's going so easily, and she worked a very good time that day. As she has Maldonado in the saddle. Pete was concerned about the rail draw, but Tom Knuth's put him right. He's been around here for a lot longer than I have, and Peter Miller has. And he says back in the 60s and 70s, the gate was drawn right next to the rail, and it was very hard for you to be able to get position from the 1 hole. He said now they actually have moved the gate out in the last 10, 15 years, moved the gate out further away from the rail. He said you really get a straight shot, and horses have a better record from the inside post position.
Pete just walked Renee's Got Zip today. When you're talking about some other divisions, that might be a bit of a concern. But one thing about the hill, you do need to be fresh. And if you talk to Mike Pipey, he didn't do a whole lot with Ms. Direction in prepping her for both of her Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint victories. So I don't think too much of a worry. Renee's Got Zip will be back on the track tomorrow, according to trainer Pete Miller. We'll step aside for a timeout here on Pursuit of the Cup. When we come back, we get back to the main track and those contenders in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile division. Stay tuned.
Second Breeders' Cup race of BC 31 will be the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Post time on Friday afternoon, 6:05 Eastern, 3:05 Pacific. Golden Sense looking to defend his title from the inside post position. We told you yesterday that Handsome Mike is out of this race, so it brings it down to a field of 9. But Richie, Big Bane theory, here he is, racing on dirt. How do you feel about this colt racing on dirt?
Well, he trains really well on the dirt, but the only thing is I can say my experience with his father, Artie Schiller, I thought he was going to be able to run on dirt because he trained brilliantly on dirt, and he was never able to transfer his form from the turf to the dirt. And he looks a lot like his father, maybe a little bit heavier and thicker up through the shoulders, but he's going to have to show that he can do it in the afternoons when they're off the bridle more.
This will be the first time that he's raced on dirt. Won the City of Hope Mile, and so instead of going to the Breeders' Cup Mile, they opt for the dirt mile. As for Carve, for trainer Brad Cox, his last win was when he won at West Virginia in the West Virginia Governors at Mountaineer, and last time out he was 5th, going 1 1/8 miles in the Homecoming Classic.
Well, and Cigar Street won that, and I think 1 mile is probably a better distance for him. He's won around 1 turn going 1 mile. Let's see if he can do it 2 turn against better company.
Bit of a grinder is Carve. 2 turns could be the ticket, as Caton Bradar and I were discussing yesterday. Golden Ticket, he was 2nd in this race last year for Ken McPeak.
Yeah, and he ran extremely well, but he also had an extreme pace to run at last year. Golden Sense gets the rail. He had to clear from the outside, so he's going to have to move forward to catch Golden Sense.
And speaking of Golden Sense, the colt by Into Mischief, trained by Leandro Mora, owned by WC Racing. He's 6 for 17 lifetime, one of the more accomplished horses we've seen come out of Southern California over the last couple of years.
And I think he's trained really well here, and I think his job got a lot easier when he drew post 1, and I think he's going to take no end of getting caught.
Same pattern as last year, out of the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, where he was 2nd. On to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. We will see if he becomes the first 2-time winner of this race, which was inaugurated back in 2007 at Monmouth Park. We'll take another break here on Pursuit. When we come back, Gary Young joins us. Always fun to sit down with a private clocker and bloodstock agent Gary Young to get his thoughts on big races. Bottom line, there's a lot of eyes on these horses every morning here at Breeders' Cup Week, but not so much the rest of the year. One set of eyes that's always on these horses training in Southern California is Gary Young. And Gary, we welcome you to Pursuit, and thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
I know you want to talk about some works, and let's get right to it. Super Colossal, he worked very quick back on the 27th. What caught your eye about this work for Eddie Plesa?
I'd seen this horse run a couple times at Monmouth, and he kind of impressed me. He came here. First impression was he's not a very big horse, but he's a very efficient moving horse. He took off from the pole running, and as you can see, Paco's just sitting on this horse, and smooth lead change, and I mean he's a very nice moving horse. 45-3 is 45-3. He did it pretty much on his own. The pace of this race became a little bit more clouded with American Pharaoh's defection. I like to see a horse, and Richie can tell you when you're done working like that, horse's ears went up when Paco stood up on him, galloping out like the horse is kind of saying, "Is that all you got?" You know, I mean, the question is, did he do too much?
Yeah, I mean, you had to like what you saw, and especially, like you said, he looked like he was enjoying himself. But for a young horse with the less foundation than an older horse, does that starch him?
It's certainly a concern. I'm sure that when they left the barn, Eddie Plesa Jr. didn't say to Paco, "Let's go 45-3." But there's a few horses this week: Little Alexis, Fast Anna, Super Colossal. All of them work terrific. Did they work too fast? We're going to find out here this weekend. But you know, the way the training goes these days, they usually get the fast work over with 2 weeks out and just have a nice regular work 1 week out. These horses, they didn't have a regular work 1 week out. They rolled, and whether that's going to work or not, we're going to find out here.
Let's move over to the Breeders' Cup Mile, where Tom's Tribute is part of that group. Gary, and what did you think of his workout moving towards this try in the mile?
We gave this horse like 9 weeks off after his 2 wins at Del Mar. He had been working like real slow his first 3/8 and real fast his last 3/8. Mike got on him this day, and we just did a steady 5/8 here. He's very relaxed. His last 2 races in the paddock and in his race, he's finally learned how to relax, and it's made him a better horse. He was just cruising around there with Mike that day. He hit the ground really good, and you know, obviously Seek again and the Europeans are a huge question mark, but you know, we have a lot of confidence in this horse, and I firmly believe he's going to run the best race of his life. Whether that's good enough, we're going to find out here again.
What about Danny Boy? His workout on the 26th of October. Tough draw, though, when you're talking about the race.
Danny Boy came here, worked a terrific 5/8 on the dirt, and then he came back, and this was terrific. I mean, I think Tammy's a really good exercise girl. Kind of cut him loose a little early, and I kept waiting for this horse to run out of steam, and he never really did run out of steam. His gallops and his works have been terrific since he got here. then he draws the 14 hole, and that's tough to overcome. I mean, the Euros are always tough in these turf races as it is, and you have an American-based horse who draws the 14 hole. He's up against it, but this horse can run, and I think he will be a decent horse down the road. Can he win from the 14 hole? That's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask.
Well, one thing we do know is that Dave Hoffman's knows how to win Breeders' Cup races, period, and he's got Home Run Kitten, and I know that both you and Richie are going to hold the same sentiment as far as this colt moving towards the downhill turf course yet again, and like Richie has said, Dave Hoffman's has acted like he's sitting on a big race this weekend with this horse.
You know, he trained terrific for his last race, and it was one of those where you look at the racing for him, and he was first time against Olders and stuff, and I go, nah, I'm not going to bet him, and he ran huge to run down that horse and get up in that race. His workouts since the race have been terrific. I mean, Talamo's just sitting on him, and he's not a really big horse, but he really gets low and accelerates in these workouts, and he does that on the turf, as we saw the other day. And, yeah, Hoffman's knows how to win a race down the hill, doesn't he, Rich?
Yeah, he sure does. And just what you said, the way he dropped when he accelerated, I love when I see horses get low and really finish.
Yes, yes.
Gary,
yes.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the time.
Good seeing you guys.
Gary Young, private clocker, bloodstock agent, one of the most respected opinions as far as horses, period, here in Southern California and really throughout North America. When we come back here on Pursuit, the girls will have the international report. Brought to you by Fasig-Tipton, an all-time great place to buy all-time great racehorses. Get in the game. And TwinSpires.com, your home for online wagering. Visit TwinSpires.com and join today for a $100 sign-up bonus.
Welcome back to Pursuit of the Cup. Time now for the international report, as it is the Thursday of Breeders' Cup. Everyone is here and on the ground, so we've had a chance to catch at least a glimpse of all of the Euros thus far. Joining me back here on the set at Clocker's Corner is Millie Ball, and Fanny Salmon joins us now as well. Fanny, we've talked about the horses pretty extensively, but we wanted to focus in on one of the riders this morning, Ryan Moore, who the Racing Post calls the global go-to rider. He really is the big money rider around the world.
Absolutely. He's on fire right now, but he's always been extremely reliable. He's one of the shyest jockeys I've ever met. He's never going to run towards you for an interview, but if he may not be as great a communicator as Frankie Dettori, he definitely knows how to make the horses do the talking on the track. He never feels the pressure. He knows, I think, how to isolate himself, and that translates into results.
You mentioned, Christina, money rider. This is a look at the last 9 weeks for Ryan Moore. He has flown all over the world. He's won grade ones at Woodbine, Canada, Australia, France, England, and Ireland. Look at those, all grade ones in the last 9 weeks. And we think of money rider over here as Mike Smith. You think of 2013. Mike Smith won 18 grade one victories. Well, this is the Euro import. He's the equivalent of the Mike Smith.
It's interesting. Ryan Moore is actually 6 for 27 in the Breeders' Cup overall. He is the highest winning percentage of any jockey in the Breeders' Cup, even better than Mike Smith, winning percentage-wise.
And he's not only popular in Europe and here, he's popular in Japan. He's been granted a license and he's going to winter there, like Olivier Pellier or Christophe Soumillon have in the past.
To look at your entries for the Breeders' Cup turf, as you can see, Ryan Moore, he will be aboard Telescope, who draws the rail post. Millie, yet another good-looking son of Galileo.
Oh, I got a really good opportunity to see Telescope for the first time today. A standout. This horse is gorgeous. He's by Galileo, as you mentioned, with Sir Michael Stout. Sir Michael Stout has been pointing to this race all year. No wavering. Harry Herbert, the manager, said, how about we prep him in the Arc? Just give him a run. Absolutely. No way. He is my turf horse. That's good enough for me.
Speaking of the Arc, we get Flincher here, Fanny, an Arc second place finisher. Usually we get those mid-pack or beyond.
Well, definitely he's been the right horse for the Breeders' Cup. The reason he placed so well in the Arc was the ground. His previous win was, impressive win was in the Grand Prix de Paris, which was on route, as we say in Europe. It was a really, really fast track, which we never have in France. And the track was good on Arc Day. He really performed really well, and André Fabre knows how to bring a
How
horse
about
to the British.
Chiquita, Millie? She is nothing if not unpredictable.
Oh my gosh, you look at her form. Chiquita is brilliant when she puts her mind to it, but she's a very tricky ride. That's an understatement, according to Frankie Dettori. Watch her here. She gets like to the lead and almost to the lead, and then she veers out to the left that day. She'll go over the hedge. She's very unpredictable.
Let's hear from her trainer, Aidan O'Brien, with regard to those antics.
No, she doesn't show it in train. It's just on race days. Like, Joseph didn't get to the front until after the furlong marker the last day, and she still just did it. But listen, Frankie will give her a great ride, and hopefully she might get there later.
I'm scared. She's very talented. She's got her quirks, but she's got an engine. If I can get a tune out of her, she can run a big race. A mile and a half is quite peculiar, this track, because you know, you start off from downhill, you cross the dirt, 2 bends, so it might just keep her interested. That's probably what she wants.
Time now to move to the Breeders' Cup Mile. No Wise Dan, but plenty of talented Euros. Morning line favorite is Toronado at 5-2. Richard Hughes for Richard Hannon. Fanny, we were supposed to see this horse in the Breeders' Cup last year. Why are we just now seeing him in America?
Well, he had a health issue, some soft palate issue, and they had to be operated on. They decided to skip the Breeders' Cup, but it's always been the target to come here, and he really looks like he's peaking at the right time. He's had a good season, but I don't think I've seen him looking as good as he does now.
Millie, he's been so impressive in the mornings. I mean, he's just a robust horse.
He is very, on the muscle though, very on the muscle, this horse.
Let's hear from jockey Richard Hughes what he can expect from Toronado.
Yeah, we didn't feel he did himself justice last year, so we missed the boat. And this year he's been trained specifically for it, and his preparation's gone very well. Every race is different, but I hope he's got a good draw, which really helps the European horses, because obviously we jump a little bit slower than the Americans, but if he can get up in the first 5, I think he'll run a big race.
And the firm ground won't be an issue for him?
Hope not. He seems to like it, so that's the least of our problems.
And Al Shakaba, the ownership of Toronado, they are very, very serious about coming here and winning the Breeders' Cup, as are the Qatari Racing. And from what I understand from the Euros, you never get these two confused. They are absolutely nothing alike. They are very competitive against each other. Al Shakab have 2 with Auxilia as well, and Qatari brought in 5 this year for the Breeders'
You've seen
Cup.
covering them globally,
Yes,
right?
Yeah, they are from the same family, and it's extremely competitive. Sheikh Fahad, who's behind Qatar Racing, had earlier luck with Dunedin, for example. He won the Melbourne Cup with him, whereas Al Shakab has realized an arc double with Trev.
They're both making a global impact. Certainly are making their presence felt in the game.
And they are also from the same family as the owner of Flotilla. He's their uncle who won here the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, I think 2 years ago.
So some history in the Breeders' Cup. See if Qatar Racing or Al Shakab pick up a win this year. We'll step aside for one final time here on Pursuit of the Cup. When we come back, aren't we always all buried in our phones anyways? It's time for the social circle. Let's see what we're finding on Twitter here on Pursuit.
Well, some sadness in the social circle as tributes began pouring in yesterday for the great Zenyatta, the loss of her wheeling filly yesterday in a freak paddock accident. Claire Novak and Blood Horse with a video tribute, and then a poignant story by Tracy Gantz on one of Breeders' Cup's most beloved heroines. That's at bloodhorse.com. In happier tweets, Julian Leperoux, notching his 2,000th win yesterday at Churchill Downs. His wife Shay was on hand to celebrate and report it all via Twitter. And Shay was also prominent in a unique song and video that you can see on YouTube. It's all about the horse, sung to the tune of It's All About the Bass. For every every view, a donation to Thoroughbred Aftercare and the TAA Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. So a worthy cause, great song, and a great voice as well. You should certainly check it out. Now, some late breaking news coming over via Twitter as well. Announcement by Coolmore that No Nay Never will stand in Ireland next season. The Breeders' Cup will be his last start. He, of course, part of that contingent for Wesley Ward, who's seeking his first Breeders' Cup victory. And Scott, the big news tomorrow will be on the weather, as there is actually some rain in the forecast. At this point, it's looking like it'll move in Friday evening and clear in time for Saturday's races, but it's the first rain they've seen in Southern California in an awfully long time.
Yeah, it's been ages since we've seen any precipitation here in Southern California. It's supposed to be cool, too, on Saturday, which is going to be great. But going back to that YouTube video all about the horse, you were just, what was the song that you're referencing?
All About the Bass.
All About the Bass, and you know something a little bit about that,
well,
right?
Yeah, my daughter loves that song, so I know the song very well, unfortunately.
All right, as we wind down here on this Pursuit edition, just one day out from BC 31, we're going to discuss the trainers, and those trainers in the past that have had more than one victory on a card. Richard Mandela, top of the heap, 2003, 4 wins. Lucas, 3 wins in 88. Pletcher, 3 in 2010. Baffert, he knows how to do this. He's won 2 on 3 separate occasions, and twice has Shug McGahee won more than one race on a Breeders' Cup card. If you're looking at this year's Breeders' Cup, though, Richie, there's a lot of candidates. Who's the most likely to win more than one Breeders' Cup event after this weekend?
It's a really tough question. I look at Mandela, 4 wins in 2003. That for most guys, that have been a good career that day. But if I had to go to one person, and it keeps coming back to me, I'm going to say Wesley Ward. I think he's very live in the juveniles. I think he's live in the turf sprint. And I think because he's got his priorities straight, staying home to see his son running a track meet, and I know some people will question that. I don't. The work's done. I think he's going to be rewarded with a couple of them.
Be his first 2, because he's winless in the Breeders' Cup. We'll see you again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time for Breeders' Cup Friday.